Begin with a picture from the Psalm of the day, that's Psalm 45, celebrating the marriage of a king. The first half of the psalm describes the king in all his royal glory, but the lectionary directs us to the second half, which is about the bride. She is wearing a dress embroidered with gold. She is followed by her escort of maidens. Forget your people and your father's house, says the psalmist. There is a promise in this for the bridal couple. Instead of your fathers shall be your sons. You will make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be celebrated in all generations. Therefore, the peoples will praise you forever and ever. Something similar is at work in Matthew 11, although it may not be obvious on first reading. To set the scene, John the Baptist sends a message from prison asking for reassurance that Jesus really is the Messiah, the King who is to come. Jesus sends a message back with the prophecy from Isaiah, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk," etc. This is the kingdom come to fruition. The king is here. Like the psalm, the lectionary focus is on the ones actually responding to the coming of the king, but the picture is different. Not a wedding this time, but a children's game. The result is different too. The bride finds her identity in the royal marriage. But Jesus' audience is reluctant to join the dance. I've given this reflection the title, Identity Most Royal. These days, we hear a lot about identity. Often the assumption seems to be that identity is centered in the individual. Others are then invited, even coerced, into gathering around and supporting the individual's identity. But the bride does not find identity in herself. Her identity is in the marriage. She has chosen to identify herself with her husband, and God's blessing is promised to them both. Their joint name will be celebrated in all generations. In other words, all generations will find their identity in celebrating this marriage. This is about communal identity, not individual identity. Jesus' audience has a choice. The king has come, but many are declining to identify with him. Jesus thanks the Father for hiding these things from the wise and understanding, while revealing them to the children, to the babes. If children are invited to join a game, they usually do, but perhaps their elders are engaged with their own affairs. That's why they won't. But if so, they are missing out on something. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light, says Jesus. If we want a vivid description of what the choice is like, we can turn to the Apostle Paul, who wrestles with the choice in Romans 7 to Romans 8, and that's another set reading for today. "Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death," says Paul. "Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord." As I said before, identity comes from those we associate with. This can be a case of transferred allegiance. The bride in the psalm is exhorted to transfer her allegiance from one people to another, from her father's house to her husband's house. And similarly, Paul transfers his allegiance from the law of sin to the law of the Spirit of life. So the question is, for our identity, are we willing to join the royal dance? when Jesus' audience scoffs at him, Jesus says, wisdom is justified by her children or deeds. There's a bit of an overlap there in meaning. Children is probably better in this context because it's a children's game. Who is this king who heals the blind and makes the lame walk? He is none other than the wisdom of God. So as we dance with Jesus, we dance with God. And there cannot be any identity more royal than that.